Hey everybody, welcome to Bad Yogi Q&A Wednesday with me, Erin Motz, where I answer the questions that you guys send me via email and social media too. Today's question is kind of controversial, so the first thing I want to put out there is that if you have ever had an unhealthy relationship with food or any kind of eating disorder, or you tend to lean in that direction, I want you to skip today's Q&A and come back and visit me next week. Today's Q&A is about intermittent fasting. What is it? Why do it? How does it work? And why is this popular? Fasting is like all the rage lately. I've seen so many people in the fitness world and wellness world who are just obsessed with it and swear by it. And let's be honest, anytime something gains a little bit of traction in one realm, it's only a matter of time before it becomes completely mainstream. But what's the point? Does it work? Does it help? Is it safe? Is it for weight loss? Or just a general wellness thing? So I've actually done a ton of research on this, and I even did it myself so that I could give you a complete rundown of what the experience is like. So, what is intermittent fasting? Essentially, it's an eating pattern where you only consume calories during a certain window in the day, and then you fast the rest of the time. And the typical fasting window is about 16 hours. So for example, you might stop eating at 7 p.m. on one day, and then you don't eat until noon the next day. So wait, why even do this? Not surprisingly, it is proven to be very effective in breaking through plateaus in weight loss, but it's also starting to gain traction for its benefits towards longevity and general wellness, and even fighting against disease. So my curiosity was piqued. I know, you're like, wait, what? How does that even work? I found a great little snippet from a researcher at the University of Florida. The researcher's name is Stephen Anton, and he explains it really well. Basically, he says that when we're in a period of fasting, the cells in our body can essentially perform their housekeeping functions a little bit better. Cells clear out their waste a lot more efficiently when we're not working on digesting food. It sounds kind of crazy, but this process is called autophagy, and it's the body's stress response to not getting enough calories. Sounds like a bad thing, but it's actually really good for you. So this process is actually the driving mechanism behind prevention of disease and even anti-aging. This guy, Stephen Anton, that researcher I told you about, he basically describes this as cells acting younger. And aside from that, inflammation is reduced and oxidative stress is actually lowered when you're fasting. Kind of interesting, right? Like I said, I actually did this for 3 days, and my experience was probably something you want to know about. I am not gonna lie to you, it was super difficult. I stopped eating at 7 p.m. the night before, and then I didn't eat again until noon the next day. This was hard because I love food. I love eating, I love meal times, I look forward to the next meal I'm gonna have always. Essentially, I would just skip breakfast, have a cup of coffee or some green tea, and then I would start eating at lunchtime. And my lunch would be a normal size, my dinner would be a normal size, and I'd have no snacks in between. And again, I'd stop eating by 7 or 7:30. So is this a little bit extreme? Maybe. And would I do it again? Probably not for 3 days, but I absolutely would do it again for 1 day at a time, maybe 2 days at a time. It sounds really ridiculous, but I felt so great after those 3 days. A little bit low on energy, but my bloating was completely gone, my skin was glowing, and I just felt really proud that I actually did that. It's also worth noting that I was super hydrated this entire time, and I also didn't go like balls to the wall workout. I worked out at the gym 1 time during those 3 days, and I did gentle yoga on the other 2 days. So yes, while of course since I wasn't eating as many calories, I felt a little low on energy, but I wasn't completely depleted by any means. All of that sounds like a lot of upside. What's the potential downside? So to be fair, yes, all of this sounds really good, but there are still a few questions that are unanswered. First of all, if you're pregnant or trying to get pregnant, this is not the time for a fast or experimenting with, different eating patterns. And you should definitely consult with your doctor if you have any kind of trouble regulating your blood sugar or any hormonal imbalances. It's always a good idea to get a professional opinion. But I read something interesting about the potential downside that I thought I would share with you too. Let's read. Okay. skipping meals ramps up your stress hormone, cortisol, which I consider a dark lord of metabolism. And this is from Sarah Gottfried, and she's actually the author of that book, The Hormone Cure. She said, from an evolutionary perspective, that short-term elevation has a win because it got the body to release excess fat as energy. But women seem particularly vulnerable to the dangers of intermittent fasting, which can keep cortisol elevated when it should be tapering down to create the undesired effect of storing fat and breaking down muscle. So overall, my conclusion is basically this. Ultimately, this concept and approach to eating is pretty experimental. I think there's a lot of science to back it up as a good thing, but in the long term, my personal feeling is that it's not great as a long-term, permanent way of eating, but as a short-term thing, it can be kind of good for your body. It can be a really good reset. Again, if you're none of the things that we already listed, earlier. Pregnant, diabetic, any kind of hormone imbalance, etc., etc. So like I said, I might do it as an occasional reset, but as a long-term eating habit, not for me. Before I wrap this up, I also want to throw it out there that this is not advice. I'm not suggesting you all go do this. I'm not saying that this is the best way to go. I'm not even saying that, wow, this totally changed my life and you should all go try it. This is just something that I've heard so much about. I wanted to give it a shot, and this was my experience. So that about wraps it up. Over to you. So let me know, what do you think about intermittent fasting? I know it's a touchy subject, it's a little controversial, but I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are. Have you heard of it? Have you done it? Do you know anyone who has? Yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below. Now, I am gonna be releasing some very cool stuff, new things over on my list, so jump down in the description below and head to the link there to sign up for my free list to get yoga classes, tips, Q&As, more advice towards living a healthy, balanced life from a bad yogi perspective. That's all for today. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me, and I will see you right back here next week.